Hey, everybody, welcome to Our Watch. I am Tim Thompson. We are going to be talking about the Biden 30-30 plan and why this is very important for you as an American citizen to know about it. Definitely an area of concern. Before we get into it, I just want to thank you for joining us and ask you to go over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our members, what we call the Watchmen. I want to make sure you get good information. Also, if you would, like this video, share it out with your friends, your family, your neighbors. We'd really appreciate it. To talk to us today about the Biden 30-30 plan, we've got a special guest. His name is Sid Miller. He's on the Agricultural Commission in Texas. Thank you so much, Mr. Miller, for joining us.
Good to be with you, Tim.
Yeah, so the Biden 30-30 plan, talk to us about what that is and why Americans should really be concerned about this.
Well, it's very quiet. A lot of people don't know about it. They're trying to keep it, under wraps. The first week that Joe Biden took office, he used an executive order to execute his 30 by 30 plan. This is a global agenda. Europe's a lot farther ahead than we are. But basically what it is Biden wants to take 30% of our productive land out of production by the year 2030. That's only phase one. Phase two is the 50-50 plan to take 50% of our land out of production by the year 2050. The purpose of this is to reduce world population, make people dependent on a global socialist government, be totally dependent on the government, for their food and existence. So far, I hate to admit it, but they've done a pretty good job executing their plan. They're about halfway there. They've got about 15% of our land taken out of production on their way to the 30 by 30 plan.
So, how did this all happen? I mean, it's to me, it seems almost unreal that it would be this fast.
Well, it is. They want the low-hanging fruit is they canceled grazing leases on really productive land that's helped by the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, National Forest Service, and they've kicked families off that land that have been there for generations. The most effective tool they have is the Endangered Species Act. They're taking land out of production by naming a certain species endangered, like the lesser prairie chicken, the sand dunes lizard. I'm fighting about a dozen here in Texas alone. And what that does, operations have to cease. You can't flush a prairie chicken off the nest, and ruin her hatch. So that means no oil and gas production, no agriculture, no mining, no timber, no pipelines, no transmission lines. Pretty much just shuts everything down. Now in Europe, as I said, they're way ahead of us. The European Parliament has voted to implement the 30 by 30 plan. The Netherlands is a good example. Matter of fact, you can see a lot of the farmers protesting during the tractorcades all across Europe. But in the Netherlands, first thing they did was outlaw nitrogen fertilizer. You can't grow many crops without nitrogen. It's the main nutrient used to grow crops. They told the farmers to get rid of 50% of their livestock. And then when they told the farmers that they were going to federalize 50% of their land, take 50% of their land away from them, and the government would own that, they revolted and threw their leader out of office. Sri Lanka, they started there. They said, farmers, we're going to cut out nitrogen fertilizer. It's a very poor country. Their rice crop was half what it was. They overthrew the whole government, threw the whole government out and started a new government. Now we're starting to see the European farmers revolt, the protests of tractorcades, dumping manure on the state office buildings. We've seen it in numerous European countries, Germany, France, Belgium. It's spreading all across Europe. It's in India. The Indian farmers are revolting. And they just don't want to let farmers farm. They want to starve us out, basically, is the plan.
Why? I mean, this might seem like a pretty naive question, but why would somebody want to do that?
Well, they want to control world population. If we become dependent on someone else to supply our food, we lose all of our freedoms. We have to bow to their needs or we starve and die. So the quickest way to bring a country to their knees is through the food chain. It's one thing to be energy independent. We could be dependent on a foreign nation for energy, but when we become dependent on the government as our sole source of food, we will lose all of our freedoms. And that's the big picture, the big game plan.
So what can Americans do about this? Well,
I'm going to refer them to a website. We have an organization that's leading the charge on this, and other initiatives that goes right along with this. It's American Stewards of Liberty. American Stewards of Liberty. It's headed up by Dan and Margaret Byfield. They lost a 17,000 acre grazing lease. Just got kicked off of it for a really insignificant reason. So go to that website. They're also leading the charge against net zero banking. That's kind of a new one they're keeping under wraps, but the 6 largest banks in the United States just signed on to the UN's net zero banking. And what that means is they don't want to do business with anybody unless you have zero carbon emissions. Well, that'll just further cripple the agriculture industry, a lot of industries, actually. I organized the other ag commissioners around the United States. We wrote a letter in protest. 2 of the 6 have relented because agriculture runs on it's a finance business. I mean, we had borrow money each year to put in crops and raise our cattle. It'd be very, very devastating. And another source they're using is natural asset companies. And what this form does, they come in and take over control of everything that happens on the land, mostly related to carbon and carbon credits. They tried to get listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I rallied my other ag commissioners again. We protested that and pushed back on that. Got other agriculture organizations like the Farm Bureau and others to rally behind us as we charged the hill on that. We were successful, and the natural asset companies did not get listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So there's any number of things that they're using under the guise of climate and climate change to take our economy down.
Well, it seems like they've been successful on a lot of these levels. This doesn't look good for the American people. What would you say are the top 2 things Americans should be doing right now?
I would go to that website and get yourself informed. I think this is probably almost as dangerous, if not as dangerous, as our open border situation. It's going to be very, very devastating to our economy if they achieve this goal. When America was founded, Tim, 98% of the people were farmers. Today, it's less than 2%. So you're depending on 2% of the people less than 2% of the people out here to feed the world. So you control those 2% by limiting their ability to farm, whether it be getting rid of half your livestock, cutting out nitrogen fertilizer, doing away with the combustion engine and making us drive electric tractors. By the way, they weigh 5 times as much as a regular tractor and compact the soil so tight nothing will grow on it. It just won't work. So get informed, push back, get in contact with your state house elected officials, your federal elected officials, your congressmen, your United States senators, and stay on top of this and let them know you're concerned.
Okay. And again, what was that website?
American Stewards of Liberty. And the best thing they can do.
.com?
Yes. AmericanStewardsOfLiberty.com. To address all this is vote the Biden administration out and vote the Trump administration back in. You want to close the border, just vote Trump back in. He'll shut it down. He knows how. He had it shut down. Lowest it had been in 30 years. You want to get rid of this excessive regulation and all this climate emphasis. He said he'd be a dictator for only the first 5 minutes he was in office. He said he would close the border and drill, baby, drill. So that's the best thing we can do to bring our economy back. I mean, everybody's paying more for everything. Bidenomics is Biden inflation is basically what has happened to him.
Right. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. We need to get Trump back in an office. Mr. Miller, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're going to send everybody that website and wish you all the best. So, again, thank you for joining us. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in online. Once again, like this video, share it with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Go on over to ourwatch.com and subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We'd really appreciate that. We'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.